It resounded with a dull thud, but remained very much shut. "Hello, Cadet. Do you—" "No, I bloody didn't. Disengage until reactivated by me." When I got home, I was going to have to ask the boffins to change the voice. This one reminded me of a paperclip I used to know. I picked up the fire extinguisher again, considered where the weakest part of the doorframe was, and smashed the metal cylinder directly against the lock. In a rush, the door gave way. I fell into the cabin as the water from the corridor surged past me, pouring into the room beyond. My ribs thumped into a table, and I ended up in a heap on the other side of the room, along with the other furniture that had washed forward in the wave of water. By the time I got to my feet, the water had leveled out and was now up to my chest. I cursed myself. I hadn't anticipated that the door would have kept out so much of the water. My entire body was shaking with the cold, but I had to get to the book. I looked around the suite. A large bed was in the far corner, and water lapped at the sheets. A little writing table was on its side, and a stool bobbed in the water. What had been the height of opulence less than an hour earlier was now a dishevelled mess. I pushed one of the floating chairs out of my way and headed to the far wall where the safe should be. The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam was a collection of Persian poetry. There were many versions of it in print, but this one was known as the Great Omar. This was due to the wealth of its binding by the renowned Sangorsky and Sutcliffe bookbinders. They had made the book in 1911, and it was a masterpiece. The front cover depicted 3 peacocks. The backboard featured a lyre. All images were made in a marquetry of various leathers and ivory and encrusted with over 1,000 gems. These emeralds, diamonds, and rubies were then set in gold, with further gold thread embroidery decorating other parts of the cover. It had taken the binders over 2 years to make, and the glorious cover was then protected in an oak slipcase. We weren't saving the contents of the book so much as its wrapping. There was a distant metallic groan as the ship twisted further. The floor was now almost at a 30-degree angle, and water was pouring in through the door. The water was deeper at this end of the room. I bobbed and swam to the far wall, wrenching the painting away from the wall safe. With shaking fingers, I removed my wrist brace and, activating its magnet, placed it against the wall of the safe and turned the dials. The brace confirmed each click. Opening the door, the surrounding water poured in and hundreds of dollar bills floated out. Grabbing a velvet bag, I shoved the Great Omar in my retrieval pouch to protect it from any damage and sagged with relief. My mission was a success. "Thief!" A hand grabbed my collar, and a heavy body slammed me towards the wall. My chest and shoulder hit the metal door of the safe, forcing the wind out of my lungs. I tried to duck, but the person behind me had their hand in my hair, and their other hand bunched around the neck of my shirt. "I wondered what you were doing heading away from the lifeboats, and I was right. You're nothing but a dirty little thief." Releasing my collar, he grabbed for the book. But of course this was a mistake. Unpinned and recovering a few seconds of breathing space, I fell in a dead weight. As I did so, I kicked out my back leg and twisted against his. The 2 of us fell into the water. He hadn't been expecting that, and it gave me a couple of vital seconds to turn and face him. It was the man from the corridor that had barged past me earlier. Doubtless he had got his family onto the lifeboats and then returned for his treasures. I couldn't imagine greater stupidity, although as I looked over his shoulder and saw my wrist brace stuck on the edge of the safe, I realized my stupidity outstripped his. Without my wrist brace, I was dead. I was an idiot. How could I get past him, get the brace, and get out of here? I thought I'd try the truth. "Sir, listen to me. I'm trying to save it, not steal it." He lunged towards me with a roar. So much for trying to reason with him. He was much larger than me, but whilst he moved and fought like a street fighter, his dinner jacket suggested it had been a few years since his ill-gotten gains had elevated him from the alleyways to the opera houses. Scratch a gentleman and you'll often find dirt and corruption under your fingernails. That said, I still needed to get past him and escape. I ducked under his fist and stepped to one side. Fighting in deep water was hampering both of us, and the angle of the floor was lending him a slight advantage. Smashing a punch to his nose, I wasn't quick enough to avoid a ringing clout to the ear and slipped under the surface. Seconds later, he grabbed my hair and wrenched me upwards. I tried to pull free, but as I did, the ground under my feet shuddered. He released his grip as the ship itself tipped, and we were both suddenly swimming. The lights flickered once and then went out. I heard him shout in alarm. "Where's the door? I'll let you keep the book if you get me out of here." I stayed silent, trying to conserve my energy.